And my partner,
Yusuf Hermanto, with my ID 2010442044.
next slide. And the topic in this morning is animal biodiversity, especially number one, the geographical, number two, the global warming, number three, the remote sensing technology, and number five, concept of the basics. Next slide.
Here's a few questions about this material. 1. How the geographical distribution of the animals could reveal the history of geological dynamics or plate tectonics. 2. How the global warming could directly affect the migration of the birds. Number 3. How the remote sensing technology could be used to protect biodiversity. And number 4. How the concept of physics have been applied to determine the key factors causing the extinction of dinosaurs.
And an answer and explanation. Number one, how the geographical distribution of animal could reveal the history of geological dynamics or plate tectonic activities. Animal and organisms that trend to develop their own evolution. Variance might be the best word to describe it. And dispersion is often occur of this kingdom. This thing happened caused by shifting of land mass when the continent when the continents appeared. The ancestor took the animal on some species and separated it from the relative ancestor group.
And what is the relation between animal and the plate tectonic activity? One of the key evidence to plate tectonics is the similarities of fossils found in some regions. The reptiles fossils lived during the Triassic period known as Listosaurus and Cynogatus are found in Africa, South America, and India, which the fragment of Gondwana. Recent discoveries of dinosaurs fossils in Gondwana continents further confirm the argument that these land masses were close to each other during the early Mesozoic era. So here's some map of distribution of fossils like land reptile Listosaurus, fossil of fern Glossopteris, and freshwater reptile Mysosaurus. And here's some fossils of Cynogatus. Next slide.
Number two, how the global warming could directly affect the migration of the birds. Number one, change in the bird migration takeoff. The most sensitive to the climate change is the migratory takeoff. Number two, change in big migration en route. Many other parameters, whether like wind, velocity, air temperature, change often encompass of the bird. Number three, change in bird migration control. The migration wave is being controlled by dynamic balance. Number five, number four, change in breeding distribution area. Due to the global warming, environmental conditions have become favorable to breeding, but the impact is unequal is the difference of population distribution area. Next slide.
For further explanation, number one, preparation for takeoff take 24 hours. We can conclude that it's necessary migratory takeoff to occur the whole complex of flexible weather and other problems. Number two, together with the mean weather parameters, migration intensity route is conditioned by series of other weather parameters influencing the flight at the same time. Number 3, the migration control is based on the principle of dynamics balance between environment, climate, or from sky, and inner endogenous program from inner Earth. Number 4, under the influence of the changing conditions, the Baltic states are facing the shift of species distribution areas. Next slide.
Okay, here is some evidence about the effect of climate change on bird immigration. The data of bird life count in California, the new about the effect of climate change on North America, the reason why the climate change bird behavior. Next slide.
3. How the remote sensing technology could be used to protect biodiversity. Remote sensing systems typically produce imagery that averages information over tens or even hundreds of square meters, far too coarse to detect most organisms, so the remote sensing would appear to be the eye of biodiversity. The potential for modern sensors to identify areas of significance to biodiversity and predict the species distributions. There are two general approaches to remote sensing of biodiversity. One is direct remote sensing of individual organism, species, ecology communities from air unit. For the first time, the direct remote sensing of certain large organisms and many communities is possible with unclassified satellite imagery. Likewise, new hyperspectral sensor slice the electromagnetic spectrum into many more discrete spectral bands. Detection of spectral signature. 2 is indirect remote sensing of biodiversity through reliance on environmental parameters as proxies. For example, many species are restricted to discrete habitats such as woodland, grassland, or sea. Just such an approach has been employed extensively in US GAP analysis program possible precise estimates of potential species range and patterns of the species richness in region content. Next slide.
Okay, some ways to the remote sensing the biodiversity. And next, how to track the habitat of the animal using drone camera. The next slide.
4. How the concept of physics have been applied to determine the key factors causing the extinction of dinosaurs. The extinction of dinosaurs have been approved by scientists that it came from Chicxulub Crater, Yucatan, Mexico. The extinction happened in physics way caused by the action-reaction that came from impact made by a large object that would inject about 100 times the object mass into the atmosphere and causing the asteroid burning and also make a big cloud of dust. This dust stay in the stratosphere for years and distributed worldwide, resulting darkness that suppressed photosynthesis. Not only that, it also helped the active volcanoes to active at fast time that spread sudden heat and radiation to animals. There is many hypotheses that also being calculated, but it was a failure, like the Krakatoa hypothesis, the supernova effect theory, and many more. Physics can create this disaster like that, but in physics, we can look at it without getting our life in line. That being said, physics is always revised by scientists so that we can get more completion about the information that we all know. Next slide.
Okay, the the asteroid Paleogen impactor came with 20 kilometer per hour speed and penetrate the atmosphere. That the impact, I'm sorry, the impact not only made debris that covered Earth for many years and made giant tsunami waves. After killing about 75% population of Earth, and that time the Earth slowly going back to its normal states, but the impact evidence still stings, shedding at Mexico. Next slide. And there is our reference. And thanks for your attention. Don't be happy. And this is for me, Nikan Rahayu Putri, and my partner.
Yusuf Hermanto.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And see
See
you.
you.
Waalaikumsalam wabarakatuh. Thank you, Nick and Yusuf, for such a nice presentation, so explaining about the impact of like a disaster, climate change on biodiversity, and we also have heard about how the hypothesis about the asteroid that might be major factors causing the extinctions of dinosaurs. And we also have heard about how this satellite imaginary could also be used to understand the distributions of animals as well. And I also would like to share my slide to the additional explanation for the previous slide of Yusuf and Nikan. But I would like to start from here that is based on a point of view of geological perceptions that there is a theory about continental drift of flat that actually at the first formations of the earth about 225 million years ago, that our the lands of the earth consists of only single units of land called the Pangea. So this is a very ancient continental regions, and afterwards this Pangea was separated to be like two regions, Laurasia and Gondwana. So it's kind of the geological stories of the earth. And afterwards, this also become diverse or divergence of separations of such the land from Gondwana and Laurasia, and afterwards the Laurasia also separated to be North America, Europe, and Asia, and Gondwana itself also split it into like South America, Africa, India, Australia, and Antarctica. And like today, as we found in Earth, like in our recent era, that now this from the single land that could allow the animals or even small organism could be easily moved from one place to another place without any barrier like this, a sea barrier. But So it was happened in Pangaea during the early life of the Earth, but recently, as we see that there are many geographical isolations like sea, oceans, and also the physical geographical barrier in the land itself, actually. So we know that for the very ancient animals living, for example, appear in Pangaea, continentals regions, and then when this land was separated to be several pieces of continental regions, and therefore it will also be as a force to cause the distributions of animal itself, because the land where they stay also move and separated each other, and therefore they could then be migrate easily from one place to another place, because there is a barrier, including the water here, like from the oceans, and also the barriers in the land. And here it is that data showing that how the fragmentations of continents. So this is a kind of the fragmentations from the single piece of the land, and then it is fragmented to be kind of 3 pieces, and then to be more and more diverse of the pieces, and also including in Indonesia, we are composed of many kind of the small pieces, called it small islands. And there are also many kind of this very wider land, called it a continent. So the fragmentations of continents estimated from this kind of the region, like Cambrians and until the Carbonics and Permian, and many kind of the timing for the geological formations of the Earth itself. And it is related with that the dynamic of diversity of animals in the sea, because that these separations, the fragmentations of continent, and also cause that barrier, and also cause the rearrangements of the formations of the sea itself in the beneath. And so here it is. You can see that during the early of the fragmentations, we can see that marine animals start to be increased, but whenever there is a plunge like here, for example, the collisions and the diversities have also decreased. And lately, like in recent situations in our age, that the marine animal biodiversity rapidly higher as compared to from the earlier stage of the fragmentations of the continents. And here it is that from the biological perspective, by understanding the marine biodiversity dynamic, we also could reveal that it is related to the fragmentations of the continentals continents caused by the geological processes understood by the basic concept. And we just try to focus into our region itself. So it is a kind of the tectonic activity, revealed, show it by the a kind of earthquake and many kind of disasters here. So based on a geological perspective, we can see that Indonesia itself, like us living in Sumatra Island, and also in Java, and also in Sulawesi. So we are living in the regions of disasters, and there is a ring of fire here composed of the active tectonic plate that also dynamically move, and there are kind of blast, and the movement of itself could also cause the dynamic of the region itself. And therefore we actually live in a very in geological perspective, actually Indonesia is spread on the regions of very active regions in geological dynamics, also like in Japan. But we also have quite safe regions in Borneo, because it is out of this ring of fire, so it's quite safe for living in Borneo because there is no such a significant plate that may cause that geological process here, like earthquake frequently happen. And here it is the geological dynamic of the plate. Like here there's a fault like Sumatran fault and also Sundan Trans, and here is the Mentawai Islands, and therefore we as people living in Sumatra, and particularly in West Sumatra, we are so vulnerable due to this active formation. As you hear that the Sumatran fault tend to move here, and then this is the come from this force from Sunda trends also cause the movement to be slightly to the north. And here it is come the Sundan trends that also as the Australian plate also cause the subduction here, and therefore we live in very active regions. And as you see here that, and this is based on the geological history, that actually we, particularly in West Sumatra, this is the belt of volcanic belt from along the regions of these faults in Sumatra, and there are many kind of this one. This is the volcanic mountains that are also still active, like in Sinabung, in Merapi, and many kinds of the active volcanic mounts that will may could burst in any times, also in Java Island as well. So here it is because of this Indian Australian tectonic plate, and also we also have the Sumatran plate. It causes the very active dynamic geological process here, causing that this kind of mountain regions here, call it Bukit Barisan, stretching from starting from the north to the south in our regions. And also there are a kind of the proof, a kind of that's remaining of a previous geological process, like a very high volcanic mountain calls it the Maninjau Lake as the crater. So Maninjau Lake is actually, this is the volcanic lake, and but Singkarat Lake is tectonic lake. It's caused by the split of the earth plate, but this is caused by the bursts of the mountain, the volcanic activity of the mountain. And here it is in Solo, for example, we found that there is the Twins Lake, Kalit Danau di atas, Danau di bawah, and here it is Talang, and also. So as you see here that also on the north, we can also find the Toba Lake as the proof that it is actually caused by the volcanic activity along these regions of the fault in Sumatra. And here it is based on the perspective of geological, actually, this activity could cause the migrations and also the separations of animals living in these regions, and from the this western region, and this is from the eastern regions. And there could be a kind of the barrier here that will protect, it will inhibit the migrations of some animals that could be difficult for them to cross this barrier, and therefore there will be separations as the force causes the biodiversity increase and the divergence of the biodiversity between the eastern and the western regions of the Sumatra itself. So we just focus on our island itself, and kind of this, like, for example, there is because causing by the tectonic plate here, there is a mountain regions that will be increased rapidly, and there is be a physical barrier here that will cause this animals in this region couldn't move here, and vice versa. And therefore the origins when there was no barrier here, and still these two populations could be meet each other and breed each other, and therefore their divergence is still lower. But afterward, when there is a barrier formed here, and it will separate this animal. It will be kind of the parent for this animal will become two distinctive species or distinctive or populations that could cause that increase in diversities of them. And for that, animals with the ability of traveling in long distance, like the bird, they also could migrate to the small island or other regions, and then start to make new populations, and therefore they also will cause the increase in biodiversity. And this is also, like previously, you can say that in the regions of California, there is also the very great examples or representative formations of how, like these formations of the Central Valley here as a physical barrier caused these reptiles, the kind of lizard that actually refers, because this in this California region, before the formation of the Central Valley and also the physical barrier for them, there are only one single species or original populations of this. But afterward, because there is a Central Valley here, and therefore they will migrate in a very environmental conditions or geological condition. Here it is nearby to the sea, but it is close to the land, and therefore they will be adapted to the different situations, and it will cause the divergence of the species. And in this recent day, there will be many kind of new species caused by these Central Valley formations. So talking about biodiversity, there are three levels of biodiversity. So from the very lowest level, I bet that you also have learned it during your previous study, that within the species, within the same within individuals within the same species, like us and human, for example, or the same species and the frogs, there also the diversity of them in the levels of genetic. So a frog, for example, in Padang regions could also be different with the same species of the frogs living in Solo, because they couldn't move easily from Padang to Solo, because there is a geographical barrier that will prevent their migrations, and therefore it will be cause the increase in the genetic differentiations in the species, and therefore it will cause the increase in genetic diversity. And in the level of the species itself, so there are many species with a different species, but like in bird species or in mammals as well, and also in many kind of insects. So it's kind of a species diversity. And in higher level, that also the level call it the ecological or ecosystem diversity, like the different habitats of animals, even in tropical regions, and also the niches itself, and interaction between these species within that ecosystems. So from the very lowest level of biodiversity, there is a genetic diversity, and then the second is the species diversity, and the top one is the ecosystem diversity. So in genetic diversity, we could detect the different in genes within all the members of the population. So it is in the same species, but for the different species, we also could detect the species diversity, related to the number of different species in a single area. And then in ecosystem diversity, there could be the variety in habitats, in communities, and as well ecological process. And related to the migrations of the bird, as shown here, that for example here, showing that actually the Middle East is the center for the migratory bird. So you see here that there are many kind of the birds starting from these regions of the Middle East, and their route will be, they will be spread in different regions in different area. Like here, for example, some species will migrate into the Africa, but some species will move into the Europe, and also some species also could travel into Indonesia. Why, as previously stated by Yusuf and Niken, that actually the migrations of the bird also will be related to the dynamic change of the temperatures in the regions. So here, for example, in this bird species, the study showed that the arrival date is closely related with the temperatures of the regions. So when the temperatures like here increase, then there also will the date of arrival could also be increased. So they will precisely move there related to the same favorable situations of that their destiny for migrations. So how this change, the alterations caused by the global warming, like the change of the time for the grass, for the plants, and also for the caterpillar, for example, to be arise, it could be also affect the time for the bird to migrate and start to reproduce. Here it is the data showing that during the match time, it is meant that the bird, the frequency of bird, come to the migrations area. It's related to the time of the increase of the food for them. So it is the number of the caterpillars as the food for the bird. And here it is that the seasons of the bird come. So here it is, for example, during the April, it is the date of laying for these animals, and then May is the hatchling, and after the hatchling, of course, the need for the caterpillars is increased because the newborn of the animals, the babies of the bird, requires the many numbers of caterpillars, and therefore it should be the amount of caterpillars should be in the peaks. And it is the very precise season, since that after the hatchling, then the many babies of the bird needed the food, and the food is available in the surroundings areas. But caused by the increase of effect of global warming, then the hatchling of these caterpillars, like from the butterfly, of course. So the pigment, the numbers of the caterpillars will switch earlier of May, like here, for example, the later of the May, and it will be precisely matched with the numbers of the hatchling of the bird. But here it is when, for example, the numbers of the new baby of the bird needs for the food. But unfortunately, here it is the number of the food available from the caterpillars itself very lower in the very small numbers, because the caterpillars start to become a pupae, and at that time the new bird could then eat it because they consume the caterpillars, not the pupae, and therefore it will affect the populations of survivals of the bird, and because the limitations of the food, and it is caused this disasters. It will decrease the numbers of the bird, and it will cause the estimations of the bird to migrate at the next times. And related to the topic about the use of high technology to monitors the biodiversity, like we also, the commonly known is a satellite imaging that could also monitors about the coverings of the numbers and the dynamic or alterations of the biodiversity, both plants and also animals, and also the sea itself in the waters. So there's a current technology like using the drones with many kind of high technology camera that could detect a single species and the movement itself, and they could differentiate it. And here it is really important for managing the biodiversity and for mitigate it, and for also monitors how the diversity increase or decrease related to the times. And the technology from the developed from the physics concepts like in satellite could be used here. So I think that is my additional explanation related to the presentations of Yusuf and Nikan, and I think we also have heard about the questions related to this, about how the biodiversity could be monitored using the device developed by the physical concept like in drone and satellite imaging as well, and also how like we also could use the carbon dating to determine the fossils age, like previously in dinosaurs, for example, because we don't have the living dinosaurs, and therefore we couldn't determine the age of such a dinosaurs. But how using the physical concept like carbon dating, we also could reveal that actually, for example, these animals live like thousands or million years ago in the earth. Okay, until here, so I think we have also understand about such a topic of animal biodiversity today, and you also as a physics student could also think about you may contribute in the futures about the managing biodiversity, because the diversity is a key, play a pivotal role in survivals of human being, as well as the stability of environmental conditions in the world, because the extinctions of a single animal, single species of animals may also affect the life of human itself, and also another organism, other organisms. Do you have any questions? Rafli and Nabila, Lindu, Fajri, and Khairul Nisa, we may discuss here for related to our topic today about the animal biodiversity. And recently, also in biology, we have a very sophisticated technique or methods in, detecting the diversity. So, for example, if we want to measure the diversity of animals in synchronous land, so using the conventional technique, we should collect any single species of the fish living in synchronous lake. So we conduct the observations like 3 or 6 months, or even along the year, to collect any single species and counting the individuals in each regions of synchronous lake. So it's like a time-consuming activity, and also, of course, very expensive. But recently, there is a technology enabling us to, just based on collecting the water. So we just collect like 10 liters of waters, and then we extract the substance inside within the waters, and then we could reveal the genetic materials, every single DNA contained in the waters, and then we sequence and we could detect the species of species of the animals or organism, any kind of the organism, from microorganism into the fish, and even humans, could be detected from like a cup of water of synchronous lake we collected. So that's a kind of the advanced technology, call it next generation sequencing in monitoring of biodiversity itself. Okay, so any questions or kind of comments or
Sir,
additional
sir,
information? Okay,
I have
please, you can.
it's okay. Sir, I have question. You
Yeah.
know, dinosaurs. Yeah, dinosaurs have short like plant a very long.
Yeah.
Sorry, sir. Kok kok gemak ya, sir?
I don't know, but for me, no.
Okay. Uh, dinosaurs are very long and which I feel very long like tree. So what the tree now is a very long, not long. Atau dalam bahasa Indonesianya adalah makanan dinosaurus. Biasanya kan itu kan kayak tumbuhannya tuh kan pastilah tinggi-tinggi juga kan, sama kayak dinosaurusnya. Tapi kenapa pas dinosaurusnya udah punah, kenapa apa kayak pohon makanannya dinosaurus atau tumbuh-tumbuhan itu juga menyesuaikan seperti tingginya manusia saat ini. Jadi apakah lama-kelamaan manusia sama tumor itu tambah mengecil gitu, Sir?
Okay, so that's nice questions. If we try to understand how these call it miniaturizations, like the size of organisms become smaller, and also humans actually. So humans, when we compare with a very early stage of humans, like our ancestor, for example, the prophet Adam also has a very large size of the body, and also many kind of organisms at early period of their life on Earth, also having a very large size compared to recent situations like today. But due to relationship between like the extinctions of the giant animals like the dinosaurs, or whether it's related with the miniaturizations or the alterations of species of the plants, like the source of the food becomes smaller, we could then provide any kind of proof yet, evidence yet, showing whether these miniaturizations of plants also related with, because the numbers of the gigantic animals feeding on them also decrease, like the extent of dinosaurs. But there is a hypothesis that actually there is no kind of close relationship between the extinctions of giant animals with the decrease of the size of the plants as the food resource, because probably the miniaturization itself caused by the change of the environmental conditions in where they live, like when the global warming also causes the decrease in the maximum size of some plant species like trees in the world, and therefore the giant species of the plants also become very rare in the recent era, in recent of life, due to like the environmental situation and also the anthropogenic factors, like because the humans activity caused this miniaturizations of the plant. So related to whether it is caused also related with because the extinctions of the dinosaurs, probably not, because there is no evidence that the disappearing of the predators, I mean the herbivores consuming of such a plant, also related to the decrease in the size of the plants. That is the answers, Nikan.
Oh yes, sir. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Any other questions? Cindy, you had that tool, and Lindu, Tuti, Roughly, and Abila. So if you want to understand about how the diversity, the biodiversity is really important to protect us from many kind of the unfavorable conditions of the earth. Say, for example, kind of the virus that may infect us. So there is a degree of the resistance of individuals against the virus infections. It is also related to the genetic diversity. So with the population with very similar genetic diversity, this means that they have a lower biodiversity and genetic levels. They will be very sensitive to the extinction caused by like infected species. Like recently we also faced the pandemic of a COVID caused by SARS-CoV-2. So SARS-CoV-2 also this virus also could infect each individuals in the world, but how this could be caused the severe or moderate or even like non-symptomatic outcomes, it is also related with the genetic diversity. Like recently revealed that like the Africans or the black peoples, they have a very sensitive immunity. They couldn't be survive as stronger as Asian peoples against this virus. So this means that actually us as a human, also the diversity, the genetic diversity in human also may affect the survivals of them against the challenge from the environmental situations like in infected species, and also the same situations apply for other species. So the environmental, like in the forest, when they just have a single species of the plants, it will be very easy to be destroyed by single factors of environmental, like the fire or even the storm and other. But when like us living in regions of the tropical forest, there are many species, there are plenty of species there of the plants and many kind of taxa there, starting from the very smaller to the very higher levels one. And therefore when there is a disaster factors like landslide or fire or storm that could destroy such a region, there will always be a survival, because the species living in the forest is not only the single one but many species, and therefore one species may be caused severely, I mean maybe or die or extinct, but other species will be survivals. And here it is showing how the diversity itself a kind of the force of us, a kind of the capital for us to be always be survival, always be the winner against the unfavorable situations of the environmental situations. Okay, any other questions before we finish up our discussion today? So I consider no. So thank you for the presenters today. Okay, roughly.
I want to answer, but
Okay.
my question is not about our topic today, sir.
Okay.
How I often hear about species, sir. How can we create new species from cross of different animal itu, sir? Gimana caranya kita itu kan sering dengar tuh sir, kayak apa spesies baru hasil perkawinan hewan ini sama hewan ini, kok bisa sir, kan beda hewan gitu loh.
Yeah. So actually it is related also with the technology. When we actually it is related to the ovum itself, the ovum, the eggs of species. So I will try to say it like interbreeding. So it is called actually interbreeding. So when we breed, for example, but still this species could be the closer one. We couldn't like interbreed between the monkey and the and lion, but still the let me copy you this one. The prominent one is donkey and the horse actually. So I'll show you here. Oh, unfortunately. Wait, so actually it's quite easy for us to manipulate the breeding, because by combine the sperm and the ovum from the different species, but it should be the closer, like genetically they should be in closer relationship. Like us, for example, human and bird, it's kind of the long distance of relationship. So like mammals, cat couldn't be interbred with the bird because it's a very a long distance of their genetic diversity or genetic or divergence. But for example, when we interbreed between a donkey and a horse, and there are also in the very close taxa in biology, and therefore it is quite possible for us to fertilize the eggs of a horse with the sperm of donkey, or in reverse, the eggs of a donkey fertilized with the sperm of the horse. And it is possible for this zygote as the product of fertilizations, it is possible for them to be able to grow to be the new individuals, and call it the hybrid. So hybrid is a combination between two different species, like the donkey and the horse, and they will produce the new individuals with combinations of this characteristic of a donkey and a horse. But so it is very easy actually in like a reproductive technology. But sometimes also we can also find it in natural situations without any interference from humans. So some species, the same species like tigers and lion, also could possibly interbreed each other to produce the new, hybrid. So we also couldn't determine whether this is related with the lion or related with the tigers. But of course, this will be the new species of animals. So it is in artificial situations that it is really possible to induce the interbreeding between different species. But please remember that interbreeding or a kind of reproductive combinations between the two species should be the close related species. So we couldn't cross like the crocodiles with the bird, or the monkey with crocodiles, for example. It is impossible. But between the species of the monkey, for example, it also could possibly interbreed. But sometimes the major the very possible problems is when we successfully produce the new species, call it hybrid species. Unfortunately, sometimes there is a genetic problem here, because in the formations of the gamete, like the formations of the sperm and the ovum for this hybrid species, couldn't be reproductive easily, so they will be sterile. They couldn't produce the new offspring afterwards. So in Indonesia, I call it that there is a sterilization. Jadi ada sterilisasi. Kalau biasanya spesies hibrid itu dia akan bermasalah dengan reproduksinya. Jadi kita bisa menciptakan biasanya dari proses hibrid ini only single generations. Jadi hanya satu generasi. Misalnya tadi donkey cross it with the horse, and then it will produce the new offspring, combinations of the horse and the donkey. But then this new hybrid species, jadi spesies baru ini yang merupakan kombinasi antara donkey dengan horse tadi, dia tidak bisa bereproduksi. Karena mengapa? Dia akan steril. It couldn't produce the sperm, or if it's female, it couldn't produce the ovums, because during the formations, I think you have learned about the gametogenesis. So during the formations of the sperm or the ovum, there should be the equal separations. Harus ada pembagian dari material genetiknya yang seragam, yang seimbang antar sel, terutama kromosom seksnya harus dibagi secara seimbang dalam proses pembelahan untuk pembentukan sperma dan ovum. And that is a problem with the hybrid species, because when there is a separations of the material genetic, sometimes it will be unequal. Jadi biasanya pembagian material genetiknya ketika pembentukan sel-sel kelaminnya itu menjadi tidak seimbang, sehingga nanti dia akan tidak menghasilkan sperma dan ovum sama sekali, atau menghasilkan sperma yang tidak fungsional, dia unfunctional. And therefore, without any kind of sperm or ovums, it is impossible for them to produce the new baby when they are mating. So that is roughly.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so since that time is almost finished, so we have to close our class today. And thank you very much for our discussions, and thank you very much for the nice presentation from Nikan and Yusuf. And next week will be the largest groups, right? So we'll have one single, yes. So the next week we will have Shindy and Tuti presenting about sensors and navigations in animals. So we will understand about the particular a kind of sensing and animals, because the animals are often have a very developed sensing organs as compared with the humans, and therefore it is interesting for us to discuss about it and to understand, and eventually we could be inspired to develop the technology derived from such informations from the sensing technology, created by the God for the animals. And okay, so all of us now attend this meeting. Thank you very much, and see you next week. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
See you, sir.
Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.